order and call roll, please. Guerrero? Here. Kent? You said he may be late, so I need
Yes.
to hear. Okay. Leeper? Here. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Here.
Stahl?
Here.
Welby?
Here.
Okay, so we're ready.
That will help.
Mr. Meadows, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to go directly into the amended budget hearing. I need a motion to open the hearing on the amended 2019-2020 school budget. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Jeff Stahl. My pen just broke. Anyone have an extra? No. One.
You like prefer black or blue?
I don't care. I have to go out to the car if I don't borrow, so I'm not picky. All right. So call roll, please.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent? Not back yet. Leeper? Here. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Here.
Stahl?
Yes.
Welby?
Here.
Okay. Amended budget.
I presented the budget, or the amended budget to you on May 12th, was it, or 13th? Wherever the last meeting was in May, I think it was the 13th. And it has been on display for the required 30 days, and I don't see, is anybody here that would like to speak in regard to the budget? Doesn't seem like it.
No.
So I would recommend that when we get to that point in new business that you accept the amended budget as presented.
Okay. So I need a motion to close the hearing on the amended 2019-2020 school district budget.
So moved.
Motion made by Roger Reed. Is there a second?
Second.
Glenda Welby, call roll, please.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Welby?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Okay. And a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Eric Pearson, seconded by Martha Leeper. Call roll, please.
Stahl?
Yes.
Welby?
Yes.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Okay, I had 6:03. Okay. And, oh, I guess I jumped the pledge there.
It's okay.
We'll just do
That's
it
okay. I
once.
moved it up.
Okay.
That's okay.
So at this time, I need to take roll to start the regularly scheduled budget, or I'm sorry, budget board meeting.
Guerrero?
Here.
Kent? Not here yet. Leeper? Here. Pearson?
Here.
Reed?
Here.
Stahl?
Here.
Welby?
Here.
6:04. All right, recognition of visitors.
We do have Lee here today from American Central Insurance, and he has our insurance proposal figured out.
Okay.
And I'm gonna let him present that to you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allotting me some time in your packed meeting schedule. As we've done in the past, I sort of brought a presentation that may look a little bit different. I apologize, I didn't have access to all of the usual office supplies and nice presentation materials that we usually have. So this was built right at my kitchen table. So, but if you would notice, the front page may look familiar to some of you who have seen the renewal before. I'm actually presenting a suggested renewal of Liberty Mutual for the property and casualty insurance, including auto, umbrella, property insurance, and Zenith as our continued workers' compensation carrier, so no changes there. And then K&K Insurance, underwritten by Nationwide Insurance, for the 2 student accident policies that the district has carried for some time now. There are a couple of changes here that I would like to discuss, and then as usual, just open the floor to questions that I'd be happy to field or research if those come up. There is a modest increase over last year's premium with the renewal that we're suggesting at 3%. That total amount is $5,400. As you can see, moving down the highlighted right copy of the presentation here, there is some increase on each of the lines of business, but one of the largest increases is on the workers' compensation. That is due to an increase in the district's modification factor, going from 0.84 last year, which is a 16% discount on workers' comp rates, to a 1.04 this year, which is a 4% surcharge. So that's effectively a 19% increase over year. Rates came down, payroll is up slightly, the modification went up significantly. And for those of you who may not fully understand what the modification factor does, it's simply a factor that they multiply the base premium by in order to determine the final premium. And that factor is based on a grading of the performance of the account over the life of the business, or in this case of the district. So that increase is due to some claims activity. The commercial auto has stayed roughly the same, with the addition of some new buses that you guys do every year, I think. And then the student accident premium, it actually, I think, deserves some added attention this year. We have 2 student accident policies underwritten for the school district. One is a student accident policy that covers smaller accidents that may be from $0 to $25,000 in size. These are bumps and bruises where a student is hurt in PE class. It's not serious, but we'd like to provide that family with some assistance, and obviously maybe close some liability holes for the district in such an event. That policy has actually been used frequently by the district. We've had about 17 claims on that policy over the last 6 years. So it is something that families in the district are using, and therefore, after a discussion with Mrs. Guerrero and Mr. Meadows, we determined that that was likely an important policy to keep. However, the catastrophic student accident is a $1 million policy that covers all athletics, and it has a $25,000 deductible. So you can see what we've done is try to stack the 2 policies together. So $0 to $25,000 is covered, and then $25,000 on a much more significant injury would be covered up to $1 million. However, after a long discussion, we kind of thought that, and truly the highest risk for a catastrophic claim to a student at school is going to be activities and sports. Of those sports, it's going to be cheerleading, football, and basketball. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with those sports right now. The risk may be significantly limited if we go to a 7-on-7 schedule, or if the worst happens and IHSA decides to postpone or even cancel a season. So I believe that we agreed that maybe a wait-and-see approach on that $6,400 premium was the appropriate course of action for the district. I contacted the carrier, and we were able to start this again at any time. So if that end of July deadline rolls around and we find out it's business as usual with those contact sports, those higher risk activities, we can just plug that policy right back into force, and it will respond the day that we put it in force. But as you can see, I've marked deferred for that premium for now. Obviously, I will answer any questions, and if the board has any concerns with that course of action, I'd be happy to address that further. So the umbrella premium is up, and many of these are market driven. I had a conversation with Mr. Meadows earlier in the week that insurance companies use a variety of factors to price the future cost of insurance, because they're not really interested in what it cost to insure last year. They have to price their future rates because it's an annual contract. One of the things that they use is loss history, but another thing is societal factors. And anytime an insurance carrier gets nervous, as I can imagine they would be in this particular environment, rates tend to increase. So they don't know what particular set of liability challenges are going to be provided or are going to be presented to a district now. What happens if we do have cases of corona? Is that our responsibility? Will we have to hash that out in court on the carrier's dime? All these are question marks that correlate to an increased premium. I will tell you that many of our districts are seeing a far greater spike. This district has performed very well over the life of the policy with Liberty Mutual, so that was I was able to go back twice to get more aggressive pricing, and ultimately I think we landed in a good spot, albeit a few $1,000s over what it was last year. But I do believe that the risk this year may be a bit higher than it was in 2019, just across the board. Two things that I wanted to mention. I do have, on this student accident premium, I just told them that they needed to do better, so there's a potential that we could get a few dollars reduced on that at the 11th hour. And on the commercial auto, if school is limited, and we have fewer students riding on the buses, the carriers have committed to evaluate that on a case-by-case basis and say, well, we have fewer students and fewer liability exposed, or less liability exposure. So they're discussing the potential for premium refunds on commercial auto as well. So there's definitely some challenges and some wrinkles that need to be ironed out in the insurance industry in the upcoming year. But I think overall the pricing has remained relatively flat, particularly for some activity that we've had on some of the policies. And again, I thank you very much for your time. I thank you for your trust in putting the proposal together, and I will cede the floor to any questions that may come remotely or in the room.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one question. Lee, I'm just curious, what underlying policies fall under the umbrella excess insurance of $6 million limit?
Any underlying policy that exists, that is correct. Except for, because we're deferring on the student accident policy, the catastrophic, for a time, the umbrella would not respond to that coverage.
Okay, so even the workers' comp falls under that?
Yes, it does. The requirement, I don't mean to answer your question at too much length, but the requirement in order for the umbrella to respond is that the underlying carriers are A-rated or better. Zenith is A++ rated. They're a very strong carrier, so Liberty Mutual is happy to extend their umbrella coverage to ride over that workers' comp.
All right, very good, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Motion, I'm not sure what to put as far as a motion and the total amount, and I want to make sure that we have the right figures before we let Lee go, because right now I have the motion as property casualty umbrella coverages K&K and the student accident coverage for 2021.
So we need to put a not to exceed amount and add that 6433 back in it, because at some point it's going to have to be added back in when we, assuming we'll resume normal activity at some point.
Yes, and depending on when you do reinstate that policy, that entire amount may not fall on this calendar fiscal, or on this fiscal year.
Right.
So we may say, again, I think that you're correct, Mrs. Guerrero, the total that it will be is 167, and that's if we put the policy in force today.
Mm-hmm.
If we put it in force in a month, then a portion of that will fall on next year's policy or fiscal year for the district.
Okay, so the 167 includes the 6433.
Sorry, I misspoke. It includes the 12,463 at the bottom, but it does not include that deferred amount that is not highlighted
So
for
we
you.
need to add that in as a
I
not to
misunderstood
exceed
you,
amount.
correct.
Yeah, sorry. So what are we looking at?
173,580.
73,580. Okay.
You got the motion, Martha? You're
I'm
comfortable
double
with
checking
that?
my math. Yes, so that would motion to award Liberty Mutual property casualty and umbrella coverages. That one
Yeah.
would be 17 not to exceed
73,580.
at a total cost not to exceed 173,580, and then workman's comp stands where it is, which is 61,711.
And that will not change.
Okay,
That's the total.
then that's the next motion.
Okay.
And then just one final thought. We did discuss it at quite a bit of length. My opinion is that if there is no contact sports, the district's liability there is quite a bit limited. So it may be such a thing that the board decides not to even pursue that coverage for the calendar year, just depending on what happens with sports. I'm perfectly happy to come back to the next board meeting or the following and let you have a monthly opportunity to decide on that coverage.
I think Mr. Meadows can probably just, advise us what IHSA has done, and then we'll, pretty 99.9% positive we'll put it back in.
Sure.
So.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll just be in contact with you.
That's great. Thank you very much. And if anyone, as always, has any other questions, my contact information is included in here. You can reach me for further discussion at the agency anytime. I believe my cell phone is in there as well, so don't hesitate to use that if you'd like.
Perfect.
The health insurance comes through Lee though too?
No, well,
No.
through the same
American
company, but a
Central.
different agent.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't have any questions there, but I thought they did.
Yeah.
That is one that we have to have a discussion on and decide what option.
I feel more confident in that one than I do in this one, so I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, so then at this point, I think we're good, and
Okay.
thank you very much for coming out.
It's my pleasure.
Taking the time to explain to us, and
We appreciate your confidence in your business, and I'll continue to work hard to take care of the district's interests from an insurance standpoint. So thank you very much. Please call me if you need something.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
Do you want anything in that motion about that catastrophic student accident? Any reference to it, are we gonna remember that it's?
Well, if you got the amount not to exceed, I think it needs to stay probably as written, correct, and
Then do we need to include catastrophic student accident in the motion? Because you've got property casual, umbrella, and K&K student accident coverage. When we add that in, we're also including the catastrophic, or does it just all go under student accident?
I mean, it's under student accident, but at the same time, we're going to have a motion. No, because it's under whatever, so you can just put it back in
Yeah.
without that.
Right.
Okay.
So I think it'll just fall under student accident. Do you believe?
yeah, as long as we're good on the amount, I think that's the main thing.
Right, and then adding it back in falls under the 25 threshold, so we're good.
All right.
Okay, so then, at this point, I guess we need a motion to enter closed session for the reasons stated on the agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Martha Leeper, is there a second?
Second.
Linda Welding, call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent, it's not here yet. Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welding.
Yes.
I have 6:17. All right. So at this time, I need a motion to accept the closed session minutes as read in closed session. Motion made by Martha Leeper, is there a second?
Eric?
Eric? Call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent, Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welding.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, I need a motion to employ Maggie Sullivan as a speech pathologist for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion made by Jeff Stahl, is there a second?
Second.
Linda Weldy, call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welding.
Yes.
Okay. Motion to approve the educational support staff salary schedule for the 2021 school year. I'll move. Is there a second?
Second.
Roger Reed, call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welding.
Yes.
Okay. And then from here, we move on to the consent agenda. Did anyone have any questions regarding what you received in your consent agenda or anything that's been added here this evening?
The cafeteria numbers are super, aren't they?
Even with our
I
partial
mean,
school
yeah,
year?
yeah. It's great.
Okay. So, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Martha Leeper, seconded by Roger Reed. Call the roll, please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welding.
Yes.
Okay. Superintendent's report.
Excuse me, I have 3 items on there. The first being it's not really called the CARES grant. We received money through the CARES Act, and now it's called the Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief Grant, or ESSER. And anyway, we're awarded $77,000, and would like to have a little bit of discussion, maybe help with the direction of what we would like to do with those funds. As I mentioned in your in my superintendent's report to you, ISBE's recommending that we do something that is COVID related with those funds, and that would be either buying hotspots, buying some sort of technology to to put in the kids' hands in case we have to have an extended, period of time where we're doing the remote learning again. And I don't see how we'll get through the school year and not have a period of time. I listened to a webinar today from a law firm that said just expect it.
And on this ESSER, I sat in on a president's meeting a couple weeks ago, and there's supposed to be, and I had told Mr. Meadows this, some additional funds coming out that you'll be able to apply for a grant. Obviously not guaranteed like the 77,000 was based on our enrollment or whatever, but it should be coming, and it sounded like it was coming soon, but we're 2 weeks out and still don't have any information on it. But there's some potential for more though. What did you find on your, how many Chromebooks do we have currently? What do we need?
Well, I think I made you guys a copy, and I didn't make one for myself.
Is it out here?
I printed mine.
So, yeah, I can look at it.
I thought I added that to, is it over there?
No, I just have the one I brought.
Hang on. Well, it had all of the numbers.
Do you want this copy to talk about?
There was an additional single-page document that I just swore that I printed with this, but maybe I didn't print it, and I apologize. But it had the numbers of where we sat technology-wise, and right now we had, I think it was 12 to 15.
It's on the back of that sheet.
Well,
That's
I had a more,
oh.
I guess, detailed one that had.
Had 43 iPads in primary, 17 Chromebooks. Intermediate had 29 Chromebooks, and 4 end of life June 2019. Middle school 30 Chromebooks. High school 85 Chromebooks. 75 are end of life September 2021. And then you got iPad totals 43, Chromebook total 161.
So that gives you an idea of where we stand technology-wise.
And that does not include the ones, like we have 2 teachers I know in the intermediate that outfitted their class this year. I think 5th grade had a class and 3rd grade had a class that got iPads.
Are you doing iPads through intermediate?
We were doing iPads up to intermediate, pre-K through 2
Pre-K through 2.
with the iPads, because it's a little easier to
Yes.
manipulate than a Chromebook for the littles.
Got it.
That number would include what the teachers have for the intermediate.
That they got on their own, through their own funding?
Because I'm sure of that, because I asked QNS to go in and look and see what they had on their system. And these numbers came from QNS. So
They were using them if they should.
they would have had to,
QNS's report.
yeah,
Okay.
they would have had to been, I don't know what the term is.
So they weren't provided by them, but they were logged in and
Right.
accounted for by them?
Correct.
Okay.
They're on our system, for lack of better terms, if we're taking terms. So, I'm hoping that we get some guidance from ISB by the 26th. I have an administrative meeting, to begin planning for next school year, and that's gonna be on June 30th. So I don't know if this is something that we wanna think about, and I'm not expecting to spend $77,000 on Chromebook or whatever, but what I would like to do is, some of that money I need to buy, like masks and hand sanitizer,
So what do
that
you,
sort of thing.
how long will it take once you order? Cause
That, I don't know.
if we get guidance before the 30th, or any kind, you guys meet on the 30th, and we have 2 meetings in July. If we were to purchase in July, at that first meeting, let's say, the 15th or whatever that date is,
I think the
potential to have
turnaround-
them within 5 weeks?
I would say earlier than that, yes.
Okay, so I think we could probably just go with that once you have some guidance and have that meeting with the administrators.
Well, when we talk about the July meeting, there are two things that I really feel like, that's why I added the meeting that we need to accomplish. First of all, is the press policy update, which is 103. That will take a little bit of time, and then to maybe look over some different scenarios of how the school year could start. The webinar that I listened to today was difficult to listen to. Yeah. So I was hoping that we would be back just normal, and it sure doesn't sound like that's going to be the case.
That was the inference I got from the webinar I sat in on as well. So now they did indicate they thought it would be different based on your location as far as what your restrictions would be, whether you were in a hot zone or a, you know, as you got further in the state, essentially, they thought that they would probably be making accommodations based on your location. But,
Well, I would hope so.
yeah.
But
So that's a plus, but anyway, I think if we can hold off then, and then you can talk with the administrators and see actual numbers, students, as opposed to, because even like what I said in, even if they're allowing school to go back, you're going to have a possibility of students that can't come because they're immunocompromised or there's something in their
teachers as
house,
well.
teachers, people in their household, those kind of things. So I think we need to get some general idea of total, take your enrollment numbers against our totals. And
I actually had a document that had the totals and the projected enrollments and all that. I will send that to you guys for your review that you can look at. But one other thing that I did want to mention, Jeff had sent me an email with a concern about the sales tax, the 1% money, and it is a legitimate concern. The difficult thing is for a grant or something like this, is that when it's federal and state, that we have to do 2 reports every quarter, and I would find it difficult to try to project out or what our losses are going to be, because we've not had the Sangamon County sales tax long enough to see what that would be, and then you take if you write it into the grant and then you don't see that loss, well then you would have to go back and amend your grant with the possibility of maybe losing money because you've not, and maybe they would probably at that point let you go back, amend the grant and spend it on something else, I don't know. But the intent of this in my mind and everything that I've read from ISB was to try to prepare for next school year, and with the understanding that we would probably see something similar as far as another outbreak and extended length of time where kids are not in school. And that's what I would recommend.
And we do have our payments set for this first year at a lower rate, knowing that we still have that other bond to pay off. So in the event we can get back to normal in the next 12 months, that could be your.
We'll have roughly $200,000 to pay back on the working cat or the 1% bond, and then we also have $100,000 left in the debt certificate. So in December we'll have a $200,000 payment, and then in June we'll have another $100,000 payment. But right now that account, with everything that's going on with Engie and everything, and money going in and out, I know that in the 60 account we've taken in $366,000 in 1% sales tax revenue this school year. We still have June left, but there's a three-month delay on that. So the numbers that we're seeing right now were actually collected 3 months ago, which would have been before the outbreak. So I don't know what that's going to come in, but I'm expecting somewhere around $400,000 that we would have to put specifically for those payments. So I think we're good this year. I know that they built in the consumer price index increase in the amount of money they thought we would receive, and that has also carried on to the amount of money that we'll have to pay each year for the sales tax bond. But I'm hoping that holds true and things will get back to normal and we'll realize the revenue that was projected for us. So that's really all I have on the CARES grant. Unless any of you guys have any other questions.
We'll just keep watching for that secondary approval.
All right, next up, the food service update. I gave you a report that we were able to knock off about $45,000, almost $46,000 out of our ed fund based on our numbers so far. That's a significant savings, and you also take in consideration that we, I think, had more variety for the kids every day. We had better food every day, and we also fed pre-K through 5th for free. And we were still able to knock have a savings of almost $46,000 in the cafeteria fund. So as I mentioned, those numbers would have looked drastically different if it weren't for the volunteers that came in and helped and distributed those those meals to our families. Couldn't have done it without them. And again, those numbers are a result of their hard work and their dedication. So when we get to the Aramark portion of new business, I will ask that you renew the contract. We went to a 5-year contract with them, but we had the option to look at it and renew it every year. And I would recommend, they have a 3.1% increase, and again, that kind of falls along with the CPI. So when we get there, I would recommend that you do that. But very, very pleased with the numbers, and just the overall program, I think it's been great for our kids. And then the last item is the NG update. We're sitting right now at about 35% completion. It seems to me like they're a little bit ahead of that. I think some of the 35% completion comes back to the fact that we're still waiting on some HVAC equipment, and there's a lead time for those. I'm very confident that everything will be completed by the time that hopefully we get to start back up at school. But one of the things that they found yesterday, that was brought to my attention at the meeting, there's a roof leak over at the middle school. It's on the east side of what would have been the 1957-58 edition. And I think when Trimco came in and did their scan, they did detect some moisture along the east side of that wing where it ties into the original 1926-27 structure. I'm hoping that that's all it is, that it's something that we can fix. Regardless of that, I think we're gonna have to spend a little bit of money on it because the insulation underneath is wet, and there's 12 inches of insulation between the outer roof and the gypsum deck that lies underneath all of that. We've not seen any water in the building, so it's a little bit confusing as far as what's going on, because I think that with that much water and that much weight, we should be able to see something, some damage from the inside, and right now we cannot. So they're going to look into it and more, and I will try to keep you posted.
And what were they doing there that they found it?
They had to, they're mounting on the side that's facing the road, they're putting the AC units on top, and when they bore their hole through to run the lines through, that's when they discovered it. So I don't think it's anything that anybody did.
No, I was just thinking, remember part of our sales pitch was that if they come across anything, they take care of it at their expense. So is that something that falls?
I don't know if that would fall into it or not.
Did you say that it was found in an initial scan though?
It was found by Trimco. We paid them to do that infrared scan, back last spring, if I remember correctly, and like I said, they did find some moisture, but it wasn't, this was farther out. I don't know exactly where it is, but I would suspect that it's probably down where Reg Colebrook's room used to be, at the first classroom on the north side of the building.
So neither of them detected it?
Well,
None of them had that on their agenda to do?
no.
Okay.
Trimco recommended that we do some sort of a restore within the next few years, was their recommendation. But nobody found that, and in all honesty, maybe it wasn't there, that it had just eventually continued to wick and move down the building. So,
Well, let's all hope that that's a quick, easy patch.
there is a building improvement grant that's out there right now that's coming through Senator Brady's office. I sent my stuff right away for the NG project. I got a response back today that said, oh, that doesn't count because you already started it. Sure, of course it doesn't. So I sent her an email right back that said, well, what if we had maybe a roof repair or something like that we started this fiscal year?
Outside the scope of engineering.
Right. So I sent that back right before the board meeting. So I'm hoping that I hear something back right away. And I hope that's not the grant that they were referring to in your discussion, because Riverton applied for the same grant, got the same answer. But nope, you started your project already. So if you acquired the funds and you had this 3-week window to apply for this, if you had your money and had a project and was ready to go.
Was it called, because it specifically called under this ESSER thing?
Well,
Was it called something like that?
no, it was some sort of building.
Okay, well, let's hope that's not.
I hope that it's not, but, so I'll keep you posted on that as well.
Okay.
I think I looked back and the estimate cost for that was right at $100,000 to replace the roof on that particular wing.
Good.
So I hope that we don't have to do that. One other thing that I want to caution you about is that if you remember back in February, we invested some money and about $7 million, which was a 6-month CD that will mature sometime mid-August. And the problem with NG starting early is that there's a chance that they're going to finish early, which moves their payout schedule ahead. I hope that I don't have to. I'm going to try to sweet talk Sharon into cutting us some slack and letting us maybe wait until August to make those payments.
Yeah.
Right, to this point though, we've already paid out 1.6 million to NG, so I just wanted to make you aware of that I might be telling you that I had to pull the money out of the CD to actually pay bills. So that's all I have for the superintendent's report.
Okay, that's enough.
But if you can forget the other stuff and just focus on that food service,
Yeah, there you go.
it's an awesome report.
Work on that. All right, so from here we move into new business. And we need a motion to accept the amended 2019-2020 budget as presented earlier.
So moved.
Motion made by Glenda Welby, is there a second?
Second?
Martha Leeper, call roll please.
Guerrero?
Yes?
Kent?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Welby?
Yes.
And then we're moving on to employee health insurance. be the newest thing was on your desk tonight. Actually, Jeff, you may not have it.
Yeah, I only made 4, because I only thought 4 people were coming. But there would be some,
Here's a set.
probably in your
I printed a set.
board packet.
Yeah, there was some in the board pack, I just didn't know if you had updated
They're
it.
just not as pretty. So now we have to make a decision on what direction we wanna go with health insurance. And as I mentioned, it's one of my benefits, so I have a hard time of giving you direction on what you feel like, what I feel like you should do.
And what's the amount, remind me of the amount under contract that up to will pay? We
Like
talked about this,
675.
675?
Yeah. So, just in poring over this, I think we need to make a change, because we've seen a drastic, I mean, what is renewal, was originally 24% up, they negotiated it down to almost 15% up. So if we go with the option 1, raises the deductible slightly, but it changes the copay from an 80/20 to a 90/10, which is a savings to the employee as well. So I feel like that saves us, that puts us back down a little bit, allows us to stay with the same carrier, puts the increase at 12.65, which is still a hard pill to swallow when it has been 6 and 7% in years past. But
Last year went the other way, if you remember correctly.
yeah, we saved some, yeah,
So it actually went down.
they're making up for lost time.
Yes.
Out-of-pocket maximum's a small increase too. I vote for, I recommend option 1.
Me too, that's
Stay with
what
Blue Cross.
yeah, it
I
allows
hate to
us,
switch companies. What a pain.
I think to get into a real cost savings, that you would have to go to some crazy out-of-pocket amount that I don't think that we want to do that to our employees personally.
Let me tell you about crazy out-of-pockets.
yeah,
I would kill to have a $500 deductible right now.
me too,
Ah.
me too.
Well, 250 was pretty darn nice.
Oh my gosh, that's unbelievable.
It's unheard of.
Yeah, if I haven't seen anybody at a less than $1,000 deductible in 10 years. So, I'm all on board with 1, 2, I think it keeps us under that threshold. I hesitate to see what the heck next year's gonna bring, but hopefully everyone stays healthy and we can maybe get a little more negotiating under our belt next year. But like I said, I think it's a slight increase in deductible, it's a savings in co-insurance, so it kind of offsets there, and it still remains without the employees having to pay anything toward the actual monthly premium. The school's still picking up the entire cost of the premium, so.
The prescription costs a little bit down there too. The first 3 tiers.
So that's just, I don't know, does anybody else have any other questions, comments, recommendations? But I think too, in looking at things realistically and what's coming, I think with going to a $500 deductible, everything in my mind says that's an easier pill to swallow than jumping from $250 up to $1,000. Someday it's probably gonna have to go to $1,000, but it'll make it a little bit easier jump at that time as well, so.
Yeah, I agree. I spoke with Jamie Antonacci and tried to give her, a little bit of heads up of what I felt like the direction that we would go, and she understood the fact that back when we negotiated, that the board left some money on the table at that point. So a little bit of an increase, I think, is expected.
Yeah. And the gentleman that writes this, did he indicate, and I may have asked you at the meeting last week, is it mostly market driven, or do we have some claim driven?
I think this is all market driven.
It's all market. Okay. Well, then I cringe to see what mine is this year. But does anybody have any other options they'd like to explore or talk about, or is everyone on board with the option 1? Can we put it to motion? What do you think?
So, is your premium on yours, because did you say something was different? Is it 641 and 68?
Yeah.
641.
Oh, this is Health Alliance on this,
Yeah,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 641.68 is what I have.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree, I like option one.
All right, so then at this time, we need a motion to renew the employee health insurance coverage with Blue Cross Blue Shield for the 2020-2021 school year at a cost of $641.68 per month per employee.
So moved.
Motion made by Martha Leeper. Is there a second?
Second,
Was that Eric?
Yeah.
Call roll, please.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby.
Yes.
And then we obviously had Lee in here earlier explaining to us the increase, and I think he went back to bat for us, even a second time after we met with him last week and got some additional money, so I think he does a really good job for us. So we need a motion to award Liberty Mutual Insurance the property casualty and umbrella coverages, and K&K the student accident coverage for the 2021 school year at a total cost not to exceed $173,580.
So moved.
Motion made by Jeff Stahl. I'll second it. Call roll, please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby.
Yes.
Okay, and then a motion to award the workers' compensation insurance coverage to the Zenith Company for the 2021 school year at a total cost of $61,711.
So moved.
Motion made by Glenda Weldy. Is there a second?
Second,
Eric Pearson, call roll, please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby.
Yes.
And then back to you.
Okay, every year, we usually add this to the June meeting, to make sure that we have none of your funds can end in the red. You can deficit spend, which is obvious, but you cannot have a fund in the red. So each year we do the, working cash, we do a motion that will allow me to temporarily transfer money from working cash to a needy fund, until the revenue caught up. And it's always difficult this time of year, and it's very stressful in that the revenue does not keep pace with your expenditures, and the monthly reports in May and June typically look terrible, and then July comes around and I can sleep again. So I would recommend that we do that. Last time I looked, we did receive a large payment from Sangamon County for $525,000, which goes a long way. I think prior to that, we were looking at almost 1.1 million in revenue that was projected that we should receive, that we're still waiting on. So now that number is probably closer to 600,000.
Now, were property taxes delayed this year, or did they keep it the same date as always? I feel like I paid it later.
No, first installment is the 15th.
Was it the 15th? Okay, I was thinking it used to be the 1st. Okay, so you should still get property tax money at the end of the month.
The corporate personal property tax, replacement tax, is based on sales tax revenue as well, and that might, I think right now we're about $40,000 short, and that is spread out a little bit over the ed fund and some of the other funds. So it's not specific ed fund hit, but the majority of it is from the ed fund. I'm hoping that we'll get it, but I don't suspect that we will.
We never put a dollar amount on it, dude.
And I will, if we come to a situation where I would have to do that, I'll let you know what I'm doing, obviously.
So a motion to authorize a loan from the working cash fund to any fund necessary to ensure a positive cash balance at the close by Martha Leeper, second. Jeff Stahl. Call roll, please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby.
Yes.
Okay, next is the renewal of the Airmark food management service contract. Again, that was a 3.1% increase. I would recommend that we go back with Airmark for another year.
Okay, motion to renew the contract for food management services with Airmark for the 2021 school year.
So moved.
Motion made by Roger.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby.
Yes.
And then your ditch.
I explained to you in our, in my recommendations to you that, the ditch that we use to water the football field, both the game and the practice field, we had it dug out years ago, and as a result, when they were pulling the bucket up, they kind of scraped the side of the bank and stripped a lot of the, shrubbery that was keeping the soil in place. Well, it has since washed out. Hutchins came back in, took out more out of the, what I would call a sink or pond or whatever you want to call it. He took more dirt out of that, piled it up on the edges, and then he brought 2 tandem loads of concrete and started filling up the ditch where it had kind of wallowed out. Unfortunately, the 2 truckloads didn't do a whole lot. It's going to need more, but what he said he would do at no charge to us is that when he does a job, busts up some concrete, that he would just truck it in. That saves him from having to take it somewhere and dump it and pay, and at the same time can save our ditch. And we do save quite a bit of money. I can't imagine what our water bill would be like if we took care of the football field the way that we do now. And it truly is. It's a safety thing. A nice, lush, green football field to play on is a lot better than a dirt field that's hard as a rock. So I think it's, we have spent some money. It's not free because you have to have the equipment to pump the water from the ditch out and distribute across the football field. We've spent some money on that, but those items are paid for, and right now we're spreading water, keeping our field nice. So we get a lot of compliments too that it looks very nice, and the band gets to perform on it as well and practice on it. So I would recommend that you approve that, and hopefully we'll get the ditch taken care of.
I don't even think we needed to approve this, but we shall, right?
It probably wouldn't hurt to go ahead and have a formal
Okay.
vote.
So just the cost is fairly minimal, but motion to approve the bid for drainage ditch repair work to Hutchins Excavating for the amount of $1,500.
So moved.
I'm gonna put you first. Martha first, Eric second. Call roll, please.
Guerrero,
Yes.
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Welby.
Yes.
Oh, these refrigerators are killing us.
Well, they're made in 1956, so they're bound to break sometime.
Didn't we just replace a whole casing, or was
We
it, wasn't this
replaced,
one, I guess?
we did it here at high school.
Oh, okay.
Roofs and refrigerators.
Roofs and refrigerators.
Yep, they're all going out at the same time. That's what happens when you let something go.
Defer maintenance.
Yeah, for 50, I can't do the math on that, but
A long
I'm 54 and I was born in 66, so add about 9 years to that. Anyway, they are going to come in, this should be including 3 years parts, not parts and 1 year labor. That is typical in the business, but for $5,464, King Lar will come in and they'll put a new updated compressor, run new lines, have the unit inside the cooler which distributes the air, and they did recommend keeping the old 1956 box because they don't make them like that anymore, and it's pretty good quality. So I would recommend that you go ahead and approve that as well.
So So a motion to approve the bid for the refrigerator repair to King Lar, including a 3-year parts and 1-year labor warranty for the amount of $5,464.
So moved.
Motion made by Martha Leeper. Is there a second?
Second.
Weldy, call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Weldy.
Yes.
Are we always responsible for the equipment in our kitchens?
Yeah. I don't even think if we went completely to our mark, and I think they would, and I could be wrong on that, I don't know, maybe in a larger district like Decatur Public, that they would be responsible. I can't imagine though that Airmark would want to take on all that.
Yeah, I just didn't know.
Student transportation safety?
Yes, that's something that we do every year. I think this is probably new to Roger, but we have some crossings that have been deemed unsafe. Route 36 and the railroad crossings that we have, really you can't get to the primary building without crossing one of these safety hazards. So it's a resolution again that we have to do every year, and that I would recommend that you approve.
And these are normal things that Martha and I were just sidebarring that we normally wouldn't do roll call on, but because that we're doing Zoom, we're required or suggested to do.
Correct.
Just so, in case our viewing public is wondering.
Yeah, they're probably gonna wanna know why we're roll calling when we're not
Everything.
spending money.
Yeah.
I was wondering that too.
So, motion to adopt the resolution for student transportation safety hazard. I'll make a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff Stahl, call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Weldy.
Yes.
Prevailing wage.
That's also something that we have to do every year, prevailing wage. Because we're a state entity, we have to pay prevailing wage. So we have to pass that resolution every year.
Okay. And then do you have that to be signed, or do we
I
need to
have
use one of
one
those
here.
nine ones too, so?
Okay.
I would say, yeah, if you wanna sign your copy, I can.
I think
That'd
it's
probably-
Martha,
that'd probably
right?
be the
It's
easiest.
just me.
Yeah, I don't have to, so we need a motion to adopt the prevailing wage resolution.
So moved.
Motion made by Martha Leeper, is there a second?
Second.
Eric Pearson, call roll please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Weldy.
Yes.
Okay, the board meeting schedule for this upcoming year. And we have accounted for Christmas break and all that we usually run into issues, right?
We have,
Okay.
The school calendar and the board meeting schedule usually kind of go together.
Now, on the 15th, is that when you're wanting to do the policy updates? And will we meet earlier then, or will we stick with 6?
I think we could do 6,
Okay,
and there will be a few items on there. The only thing that I'm wondering is if, I still believe that even if we waited till the 29th to make a determination on whether we would want to, purchase some technology, I think we could still get it in on time if we waited that late.
So we can press on the 15th.
I will be gone, for that meeting, but it could be possible I could zoom in again if they're still doing that.
which meeting, the 15th or the 29th?
The added meeting, the July 29th.
29th. So Jason, you're going on that meeting also?
The 15th.
You're going on the 15th?
I have a video on 13th.
Oh, yeah, congratulations. So Jeff is gone 7:13, James is gone 7:29. That way I won't ask you again.
7:15.
Oh, I wrote 13. That's a baby day.
Oh.
7:15. Okay. So we'll stick with 6 p.m. and we should just be able, it might take us a little longer, but we'll get out. Okay.
Yeah, and normally summer, it seems like we can get a little bit shorter meetings, but I think those both are probably going to take a little bit more time, just because of all the stuff that we have to do.
Maybe I'll bring you a snack. All right, so we need a motion to approve the 2020-2021 board meeting schedule.
So moved.
Motion made by James Kent. Is there a second? I'll second. Call roll, please.
Guerrero,
Yes?
Kent,
Yes.
Leeper, yes. Pearson,
Yes.
Reed,
Yes.
Stahl,
Yes.
Weldy.
Yes.
And the last item is the school calendar. If, unless we hear something different, the plan is to, the NG completion date is supposed to be the 14th,
August 14th.
August 14th. And I originally had the Teacher Institute then on the 17th and 18th, and the association came to me and said that might not be enough time for the elementary teachers to get in and decorate their room. I think as a high school teacher, it took me 10 minutes.
So you don't think they're gonna be allowed in the rooms until after that 14th day, even if they finish, let's say, at Harristown?
I would think that they would be, and as the rooms start to open up and we get them thoroughly cleaned and everything, then I could communicate that to the building principal.
Wait till a whole building's done or something and not.
It
Have
might
it
hurt
piecing
someone's
together.
feelings if someone else got in there prior to
Right.
someone else, but it wouldn't bother me if they did. So they asked if we could push that back, so we went with the 27th and 28th to start off the year with the Teacher Institute. If we are limited to groups of 50 at that point, I don't know what my back to school meeting is gonna look like. I might have to do it 2 shifts,
Or 3.
or 3.
Just go to building to building.
I could do that.
Yeah.
But then Carol would have to drag all of her stuff and paperwork.
Cause they
and
do all the, yeah.
it might be easier to maybe spread out in the gym and then get that. I don't know. I'll talk to Carol about that. But one way or another, we'll have the back to school meeting on the 27th, and then they will work in their rooms. One of the things that we just discussed as an administrative group, which will not be on here, is that we would like to maybe front load the calendar with some PLC days to, and we may have those days worked in with a shortened day anyway. So, but there'll be a lot of professional development opportunities. One of the things that I think that we're going to have to do is probably go away from the model of departmentalization at the intermediate building and everybody stay with their core group of kids. I think we could probably get by with the teachers switching in the different classrooms, but I really feel like as of getting to know your kids and knowing where your kids are, I think it would be easier just to have one group of 15 or 20 or whatever the case may be, as opposed to seeing 55 kids just for math or just for reading or whatever, which is what we're typically doing. So it will cost us a little bit of money in Faunus and Pinnell resources for the teachers. I think we would have to buy maybe 4 additional sets. And that's not a significant expense, but I think that's the best route to go right now, is just to prepare for that and to do it. And there's nothing that says if we felt like that was really working and that's what we needed to go back to, that we couldn't return back to that someday. I think for now it'd be best to prepare that we're all self-contained.
Are the teachers aware of that possibility?
Yeah.
I think they're just aware that it's gonna happen for now, because we assume will happen, but what are they gonna do? We don't have any guidance for the high school and junior high yet. Perfect. June 26th, let's go. Dates for enrollment, those days, what are you doing? The 4th and 5th, the 5th and 6th, or is it the next week?
It's later than that.
What are we?
Registration.
Registration.
I think we said it was gonna be August 13th.
Okay.
And the state can come in and say, no one's starting until after Labor Day.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we'll push this back. But this calendar, was our third try of working with the association, and this is the one that we agreed upon.
What about, preschool screening?
We had preschool screening in March. I think we already planned not to do a fall screening.
They canceled it in March.
They did?
It was, I remember hearing something about that.
This was probably,
I was thinking it was early March, so no, if they didn't have it at all.
I
So
was
we need to get with,
thinking that they did.
I thought they had it earlier than I thought it was pre-COVID. That's my new term
I
now.
thought it was the first week of March, but maybe I'm wrong.
Did they do it in both Illiopolis and here or one spot?
Just do it in one spot.
One spot.
So maybe we need to check on that because that will have to happen obviously if it hasn't happened at all.
Well, we wrote a grant, a pre-K grant for 2 programs, which we're not gonna know until July, because that gives you plenty of time
Yeah.
Right.
to hire a teacher and.
Yeah. Okay, so a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school calendar as shown.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I got a James Kent over there. Call roll please. Guerrero? Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Welding?
Yes.
And just going back to that, that is a possibility of doing the pre-K screening in the fall, then. They'll just do it the first week of, first full week of school.
They always start later than us anyway, but probably longer than I feel like it needs to be, but,
Yeah, we went around with that.
but yeah.
So that is incorrect, right? The next meeting, this says July 17th, obviously the year.
Yeah, it's
That,
July 15th.
on the agenda is not correct.
Yeah, I know the year's wrong, but it's
Yeah.
That was last year.
July 15th will be the next meeting at 6 p.m. And then July 29th will be the special meeting at 6 p.m. And at this time, does anyone have anything else?
I would just tell you, we do a newsletter in the summer. We put the district newsletter out in the summer, and I've worked with the ladies at IASP, and with Bob about when registration is. It'll go out in the Sentinel on August 4th, the week of August 4th. So everyone will have it the week before registration. It'll give all the details, and we're just gonna really highlight pictures and work that's happened over the summer and our new administrators. So mid-July, I have to start getting stuff in.
Yes, and maybe we'll have a spot if we know anything on COVID preparations and how we're handling that, and how school will be reopened.
We're adding a full page inside, so we'll now have 8 pages. So we've got plenty of room for stuff.
Before you go, I need you to sign the budget cover page. And Jay and Eric, I will sign for you guys an initial for the budget. I have to turn these into the ROE, the state board, and the courthouses.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Does anyone have anything else? So at this time, I need a motion to adjourn, 7:26.
So moved.
Motion made by Jeff Stahl, for a second.
Second?
Martha Leeper, call roll please.
Guerrero?
Yes.
Kent?
Yes.
Leeper? Yes. Pearson?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Stahl?
Yes.
Welding? Welding.
Oh, yes.